Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's presentation. We're going to be diving into all of these fabulous ways that we want to save and pay for college. So we have Dan McCardle here with us and Corey Murphy, and Dan is going to take it away and really dive into the details. And if you guys have questions throughout, me and Corey will be monitoring the chat. So feel free to drop anything in there. So Dan, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, and feel free to interject at any time, Crystal, if you see a question that comes up. Sometimes I can say, well, we're going to cover that, or we'll just back up and address the question. But
Will do.
hopefully this is very informative for people tonight. It's a little bit more of an out of the box sort of thinking. I'll try to take my time and go slow, and hopefully it makes sense to y'all. So, we have 4 college funding secrets, we call them, to cut the cost of college and how to get a full college refund during retirement. So imagine being able to pay for school and getting it all back during your retirement. Let's see. Whoops. Now, who can benefit from this? Well, any parent that's planning on helping your student pay for college. Now, we do have the 4 secrets. Obviously, you're working with Crystal and Corey, and that's how to maximize the free money and reduce the sticker price of school. We also have a secret number 2, which is how to reduce the college loans and loan payments. But what we're going to concentrate on today is secret number 3, which is how to get a full college refund using the retirement scholarship strategy. It's kind of a made up strategy, but it'll make sense when we're done. And then we also have secret number 4, which is the retirement restoration. So how to recover after you've paid for college and boost your retirement even more. We do have an entire YouTube channel that I believe that at some point during tonight's meeting, we're going to post that in the chat section so everybody can have the ability to watch any of these 4 secrets at your leisure. Now, the retirement scholarship strategy is how to send any student to any school of their choice and get all of your money back. Without scholarships or financial aid, and even if you have a high school or college student and no money saved. Now, back a few years ago, Lance, the CEO of our company, wrote a book called The Retirement Scholarship Strategy, which was a bestseller on Amazon. You don't have to go out and buy it because we're going to cover it tonight during this session, and you can also watch a replay of it. Recently, within the last couple of years, Kevin Harrington, who was an original Shark Tank member, sought us out because he loved what we were doing for families across the United States teaching this strategy. I'm not sure if this is going to be heard or not, so Crystal and Corey, let me know.
Sure.
Kevin Harrington here, original shark from Shark Tank. Ligeti teaches families how to pay for their children's college without sacrificing their retirement. I recommend these unique strategies to save and pay for your kids' college education.
Kind of nice to have a celebrity seeking us out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 4 college funding secrets, again, we're just going to concentrate tonight on how to get a full college funding refund using this retirement scholarship strategy. The problem with traditional college saving plans, i.e. like a 529, is that your kids may choose a non-qualified form of education like trades or just needing a certificate to work. You may have a financial emergency or financial opportunities and need money. It may hurt your now what's called the student aid index or SAI number, and you could get less free money for college. The market could be down when you need the money to pay for school. I know that just recently happened to some families that I've been working with where they lost about 30% because of the way the market went down in their 529 plans. That's a bad time to have to be using those type of accounts. and it interrupts the compounding interest of your money. So the old way is that we would save, hopefully get a good amount of return on the money that we're putting away for our kids' school. And then they go to school and we spend that money down to zero. So we end up at zero by the time our kids go to school. Yeah, they get a great education, but wouldn't it be nice if we could create some opportunity on that money? So what we don't want to do with our money is kill the goose that's laying the golden egg. Um, I know that there was a guy once that said, "Man, my 529 plan's doing great. I'm making a good amount of return on that money." And I said, "Well, isn't that a shame?" And he goes, "Well, what are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, now you gotta spend that down. You gotta kill that account." And he goes, "Oh, good point." So we're going to introduce a new way to save and pay for college. Now, what if you could borrow money without having a required loan payment for less interest than you could earn on your savings? So as we're illustrating here, what if my money could earn 6% and I could be guaranteed to borrow at 5%? Well, if my money can continue to compound at that 6%, and I could use that as collateral to borrow other people's money at 5%, then that little 1% spread on my money is going to basically continue to grow back to the point where everything that I borrowed out of it would return back to me at some point in my life. So the biggest savings of all is a full refund. And I'm going to get into some case studies here in a little bit so that you can kind of see the numbers. If you're like me, I'm kind of a numbers person. I like to see how it all's going how it's going to look. Now this works for any school, public, private, community college, trade schools, etc. And any student, the exceptionally gifted academically or gifted in other ways. It doesn't require scholarships or financial aid. And it works for younger students or students already in high school or college. So I've got some case studies that I'll show for younger kids, but I know that a lot of people, if not all, that are on this call tonight probably have kids that are going to school in the next year or two. So I'll show a variety, but you also might have younger students at home. So I'll do a younger one for younger students as well, so you can kind of see how it works. And it can be used to pay for college or even pay back college loans. Now, how do we do it? Well, these are the three components that we need. We need uninterrupted compounding interest on our money, which is what the green on the chart to the right is demonstrating. Now we need loans at a lower rate, which is what the red color on the chart is representing. And we need optional loan payments, or what I like to call unstructured loan payments. Now, would a 529 account allow us to do that? No, it wouldn't, because we can only use it and we're going to spend it down. We can't take loans from it, and there's no optional loan payments back. So the 529 account can't work. Would a bank offer us this strategy? No, because if we borrow money from the bank, they're going to require a payment back, right? And they're not going to give you a very good return on your money. How about a 401k loan? I've had parents that say, "Hey, my plan was to take money out of my 401k." And I'm like, "Okay, well, you're going to interrupt the compounding interest in that 401k. You're going to have to make loan payments back. And it's quite possible that the rate that you're going to have to pay back might be higher than what you're actually earning in that 401k. So that doesn't work." How about margin loans? Any of you out there have a big brokerage account? They do offer the ability to have compounding interest on your money and loans at a lower rate, but there's not optional loan payments back. And the scary part about using margin loans is if we're in a recession, they might call that loan due immediately. And then you'd be in a pretty big spot to have to pay a big bill back. How about real estate? I had a friend once that used to call his house the big checkbook. And I'm like, Chris, that's great. You're getting uninterrupted compounding interest on your home. It's in a nice area. It's increasing. It's creating equity. You're paying like 2.5% because he locked down on a loan back then, and he could get loans at a lower rate. Well, that's not the case anymore. So, and then what it created for him when he took loans out is that he had to start making loan payments back the next month. And the tough part about using real estate, because a lot of us have paid our house, that we're in a hurry to pay our house down. The biggest issue with it is when we need the money is usually when we're in a crisis. And if it's tied up in a home, that's usually the time that we can't qualify for it because we might be out of work, which means that our credit isn't going to be as good because we can't demonstrate the ability to pay back the loan. So there's, some scary things when you're looking at using real estate. How about whole life insurance? There's a lot of people out there that have, started them a whole life policy, maybe 30 years ago. Now it does provide uninterrupted compounding interest and optional loan payments, but the problem with whole life is that it's typically earning 4 to 5%. But then when you go to borrow money from the insurance company, they're going to charge you somewhere around 6, 8, and I've seen even as high as 9%. So that red line is going to grow higher than the green in this case. So that doesn't work as well. Now the new kid on the block is what they call an indexed universal life insurance product. Now it can provide uninterrupted compounding interest, averaging between 6 and 8%. You can get a guaranteed 5% fixed loan, and it has the optional or unstructured loan payments back. But the problem is the high fees of the life insurance. You go in, a lot of you probably have financial planners, and the first thing, if you go and talk to them and say, hey, I'm looking at doing this life insurance to pay for my kid's school, and this is the first thing that they're going to attack. And they would be right if it's not set up right. So with the retirement scholarship strategy, high fees usually mean high commissions. Low fees mean low commissions. So we want to try to keep the fees as low as possible, which we'll get into. Now, how the billionaires, banks, and large corporations use life insurance is differently than what you've ever experienced. This is actually off of bankdirectors.com. It's different. They talk about how it's different than traditional life insurance contracts. What they're trying to achieve is to get high cash values with a very low insurance component. And the cost is low compared to other insurance products. Now, even Tony Robbins in his book, Money, Master the Game, it's a fairly large book, but in a segment in chapter 5.5, he talks about the secrets of the ultra wealthy. What he points out is the amount of life insurance. It's not the billionaires who buy the most. The biggest buyers are banks and large corporations, from Walmart to Wells Fargo. Now, I know this is a little bit dated in 2014, but back then, Wells Fargo's balance sheet showed 18.7 billion of its Tier 1 capital deposited in life insurance cash value. Now, the secret to it is that most of us, if we look at the bottom of this chart, think of life insurance as a term. What if I die? I need to buy something to recover, to possibly pay off the house, take care of the kids' school, replace my income, but it's only a benefit if I die to my family. That's how most of us think about life insurance. But in fact, there is what they call a modified endowment contract. So everything above this modified endowment contract line is your IRAs, your SEPs, your 401ks, and your IRAs. Now we have the ability to deduct whatever we contribute to those, but at some point in time, when we start taking income from those types of accounts, that's when we pay taxes, right? So we get to deduct it today, but at some point in time, when we're taking it out during retirement, that's when we start paying the taxes. Now, with life insurance, we want to stay just below that line because we want tax deferred growth. In other words, whatever growth, if we can make that 6 to 8% on our money, we want that to all be tax free. We want to be able to take out tax free distributions. We want competitive returns. And we want to be able to make high contributions. You know, with your IRAs, whether it's a Roth or whether it's just a traditional IRA, we're limited to what we can put in those for a reason, because the government wants to collect their taxes at some point in time. We want additional benefits, which we can get into those later, or if we meet one-on-one, we can talk about the additional benefits. But we literally want the ability to have collateral opportunities with our money, where we can earn at 6 to 8 and borrow at 5. We want it to be safe. In other words, we don't want any volatility from the market to cause our money to lose. So that's what the no loss prevention talks about. We want guaranteed loan options. We want unstructured loan payments that we already talked about. And we want the ability to have liquidity, use, and control of our money for whatever we need it for, whenever we need it. Now, the big secret is low insurance and high cash values. That's what we want. So in comparison to a taxable account, which is with your broker, to an IRA, to a Roth IRA or 529, or compared to the index universal life, is we want to keep the fees low based on the amount of money that we're putting in. So this is the right way. I'm going to show you a right way and a wrong way. And this usually blows people's mind. Not to be cliche here, but the right way would be if we could keep the expenses at as low as possible over time, compared to the same amount of money going in, doing it the wrong way, which would cost us a lot more. So I'm going to try to switch over and show you the right way and the wrong way. We get to, does this look all right, you guys? Corey, Crystal?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, so this is, we're taking a 50-year-old here, and they want to put $10,000 away over the next 10 years into a life insurance policy. Now, what we're going to do over here in the life insurance column is we're going to sell them too much life insurance, which means that if we sell them too much life insurance, the expenses on that life insurance are going to be high. So the way life insurance works is we make a contribution minus the fees and expenses would earn us 6% and then create our account value. And if we could do that every year, and our money could continue to compound at 6%, then this is what it would look like over time, and we would have access to cash. However, if we sell too much life insurance, then the fees and expenses are going to eat into it. This is what your financial planners are going to tell you, that it's too expensive and it doesn't work. And then when we're done contributing, as we can see here at age 61, we're not going to do anything. We're going to keep that life insurance still at that $290,000, which means our fees and expenses are going to continue to grow over the years. Because guess what? The older we get, for that $290,000 of life insurance, it just spirals out of control. So much so that if we look at the end of life, we put let's say this person lived to 95, they put 100 grand in, but because we didn't do anything and kept the insurance high, they paid that 467,000 in fees and expenses. And because the expenses were so high, it ate into what their account value is, which just means that they bought $290,000 worth of life insurance that they get to leave to their family tax-free, but it still ate it up. This is the wrong way to set up a life insurance policy. Let's take a look at the right way, where we can keep the fees low. Now, the same 50-year-old putting 10 grand away, but rather than 290,000, we're going to try to get it down to the least amount of insurance that we need, that the IRS will allow, which means that the fees and expenses are going to be still pretty high for what we're putting in. But then when they're done funding it, then we're going to start to level out or reduce the insurance part of it, which in turn is going to reduce the fees and expenses. Now, if we look at this over the course of time, that 467,000 that we paid for too much insurance and never reduced it, let's look at the same end of life scenario. That same 100,000 now is only cost me 65,923, but my account value is at over 1.1, plus a little bit of life insurance. And rather than leaving 290,000, now I'm leaving a little over 1.1 million to my family, income tax free. This is the right way to set it up. That's where we go back and we talk about low fees mean lower commissions, because life insurance people are paid on what they sell right here. So this person would be paid less than this person. But if you're doing it to try to create wealth and try to have your money over here, all this interest that you earn grow tax-free, and whatever's left in the policy at the end, pass it on to your family income tax-free, then this is the wrong way, and this is the right way. Any questions so far?
Nope, we're good.
All right, let's just keep rolling then. So hopefully that kind of sinks in. This might be a little repetitive, but we're trying to look for competitive rate of return, 6% plus average. You know, the whole goal is that we want to beat 5%. If we're guaranteed to borrow at 5%, then that's really all we want to do over the course of our life, is beat that 5%. It doesn't negatively affect your student aid index, or your, we'll just use SAI right now, right? That's all we're using.
Yeah.
We want to set it up with low fees and set it up correctly. We want that tax-free growth. We want tax-free access to the money through loans. We know that when we take a loan out, we don't pay taxes on it. Similar to like if you took a home equity line of credit out, you don't pay taxes on that money. We can't risk stock market losses, which we'll get into how that is possible in the index universal life. We want guaranteed loan approval, that fixed 5% loan, not variable. And we want to be able to set it up where we can put higher contributions in. and have some flexibility to how we make contributions as well. And one of the most important things, and I tell a lot of my clients this, is having access to money sometimes can be more important than rate of return. A little thing that I used to do when we do live presentations is I'd ask somebody, hey, if you can show me $100 bill, I'll give you this $20 bill. I would hold a $20 bill up. And they're like, well, yeah, let me just run down to the ATM. I go, no, you have to have it on you right now. That's having immediate access to your money. So what they lost out on was a 20% return by not being able to show that $100 bill. Kind of silly, but kind of a fun thing to do when you're presenting. Now, how can life insurance earn 6 to 8% without stock market losses? Let's take a look at how the insurance companies do this. Now, a little different than Wall Street is insurance companies have what they call a general portfolio. Now, when you make contributions to your life insurance policy, the insurance companies, they have to keep 90 to 95% of your money on reserve, because if you pass away, they have to be able to pay your family out. So they, unlike a bank that only has to keep 10% on reserve, for example, if you put $10,000 in the bank, they really only have to keep $100 available in there. So that's the reason why some of these banks were basically going bankrupt, is because people would panic during recessions and they'd want to pull their money out. Well, banks are so leveraged with that other 90% of your money in loans, mortgages, credit cards, you name it, that they can't pay people back when everybody at the same time wants to start taking their money out. So a little different. Life insurance is a little safer because they're taking what you contribute, and most of it's going into this portfolio that's made up of bonds. It's going to make that 4 to 5%. You can even see a small sliver of it over on the right is part of policy loans. If they're loaning money at 5%, that's building their general portfolio. So what happens is every 1,000 that you put into your policy, 950 of it is going into that general portfolio that's earning that 4 to 5%, which means that 950 is going to become 1,000 again. There's your floor of zero. They'll take the other $50 and go into the options market. I'm not sure if anybody on this call is familiar with options, but you can Google it, and I even have some brochures that I can provide you to show you how options work. But it's not invested directly into the stock market. It's a conglomerate of different things like real estate and S&P 500 and all kinds of stuff, and different indexes, if you will. But as an example, if they took that $50 and invested that into, for example, the S&P 500 index, and they sold that a year later for $100, that's the equivalent of making 10% on your money. Likewise, if they were able to sell that option for $200, then it's the equivalent of making 20% on your money. And if they couldn't sell it at all, or it didn't make a dime, then the worst you could do is get a zero, but you're still at your 1,000. Now, I know this is probably a little more favorable to an index strategy because of the time frame that we carved out, but it's just an example. We took it from the year 2000 to the year 2013 to look at how an index fund would have compared to an S&P 500. The index fund is the blue line that has that no loss prevention and the ability to compound uninterrupted. And the red line represents what happened during that time in the S&P 500. And as you can see, if we took $100,000 and let it ride over that time, that the indexing strategy would have worked a lot better than the S&P 500. But I could probably show you some other ones where the red line's above the blue line. But for the most part, they kind of follow each other pretty closely if you looked at it over time. Now, what we do with our clients is we do what's called an annual review. And I think I'm going to hold off on this because I can kind of talk through it a little bit better in my case studies. But as an example, this is an insurance company. It's called Allianz. They're probably one of the world's largest insurance companies. From Germany is their world headquarters.
Dan, can I interject? Because we have two questions about the previous slide.
Yeah.
So before we get to this, thanks. The
This
first
one?
question is, what do you mean by indexing strategy?
That is, that's like the options. You know, the indexing is what is the options trading that insurance companies use to grow money. So if we kind of went back to this, you know, it's more about options trading. I mean, we could probably spend an hour talking about options trading. So that's why I'm saying that you might want to Google it to understand it, but also you can meet with me personally and I can show you different insurance companies' strategies and the historical data on how they've done over the last 15 years, 15 to 20 years.
The other thing I would say about that is that our money isn't directly invested in stocks in the stock market.
Yes.
Rather, our money's in indexes that are managed by the insurance.
Most of it's in this general portfolio, safe, right? Earning that 4 to 5%.
Awesome.
The other bit is over here, where we have the possibility of making higher returns, right?
Mhm.
So when people meet with me, there's other things that we start to talk about, like you'd go to your financial planner and they'd say, well, here's the problem with life insurance is the high fees. Well, we already talked about that. And the other thing is that they're going to cap you on what you can earn. Well, we actually have insurance companies that have no caps on what you can earn. So again, that's something that one-on-one we can kind of talk about that sort of stuff because there's a lot to kind of learn about how it works, and I get into the all the details of that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, definitely. The next question is about the slide where you had the two lines going up, and there was a floor of 0. That one.
Yeah.
So why would the red line be above the blue line? Shouldn't the blue line follow the red line when it's
Well,
going?
this is showing what happened in the S&P from 2000 to 2013. Now, you probably all remember what happened in 07 and 08. There's a big loss right there, right? Does that make sense? Here's the .com burst right here in 01. And then here's the housing market one. If you remember what was going on with mortgages back then. So by simply taking away the losses, where during that time you got a 0 in your life insurance policy, during this time you got a 0 in your life insurance policy, there was another little dip there where we got a 0. But by simply removing the losses, you're not having to get back to even before you start earning again. So in a way, this kind of demonstrates that, right? I'm going to escape from this and just go to it in a PDF format because it's easier to kind of show that. So what we do is anybody can illustrate numbers, right? I mean, I could show you numbers and say, hey, back in 2007, we were showing families an earning of 5.95% on their money. This family was going to just fund into it for 5 years. And over the course of time, if they could make that 5.95%, after 15 years, then this is what their money would grow to. However, over here on the left is an actual policy performance. Now, again, we just talked about it on the last slide. In 2007 and 8, there was a big recession back then. People lost about half of their money. Well, these folks got zeros. And I always ask my clients, do you think these folks were mad that they got a zero? And some people catch on. They're like, well, no. If I talk to my neighbor, he just lost half of his 401k. So these people were happy that they were still a little behind what was projected. Because look at the bounce back, 18.8, 9.52, a couple of good years down here. Now, I don't show this because of the good years. I show it because of the bad years. Out of 15 years, they got zeros here. Here's number 3. Here's number 4. Here's number 5. 5 out of 15 years, a third of the time, didn't perform, but still averaged 6.27% and was a little more than 30 grand ahead of what was projected 15 years prior. Now, if all we got to do is beat 5%, that's doing it right there. And that's really all we're after, is the ability that over our lifetime is to beat 5%. Does that make sense? I'll take the silent as a yes. All right, so again, Allianz did their own study. It needs to include a couple more years. I need to update this slide, but it's down around 6.27 if we include 22 and 23 in there, because there was a couple of bad years in there too. But over time, they looked at all of their clients that use a fixed indexed universal life policy, and all of their clients were averaging, like I said, around that 6.2, which is phenomenal. Now, what we're looking for is it needs to be written in the contract. In other words, when you get a life insurance policy, it's written in there that you'll get 5% each year. Every year you are guaranteed to borrow at 5%. Not all insurance companies do that. Now, what if somebody is needing to borrow the money to pay for school? Like, I have some families that have saved enough in 529s or a brokerage account or somewhere, or they could just cash flow it. But what if the college loan rate is higher than the 6 to 8% on the IUL? Let's kind of look at that, because that's always it's a little more one-dimensional thinking, but it's worth talking about. So what we want on our money is for it to compound, and all we're ever showing whenever we show numbers is we're earning at 6 and borrowing at 5. But what if we throw in where we have to do college loans, the Parent Plus loans, for example, which are 8 and I think even 9% now. Now, that loan over here on the left at 8% that we've deferred and we're not going to pay back until 6 months after our child graduates from college is going to be replaced with the money that we're already putting away and compounding at 6%. And we're going to replace that 8% loan with this 5% loan that has no structured payment on it. And it's going to decrease the interest on that higher loan. And if you kind of look at the numbers, the more we start to pay that loan down, you can see here on the left, the less interest that we're paying over time. But in the meantime, we're still creating the opportunity with our money to earn. So it's all about, there's a few moving parts here. We've got money that we might potentially have to borrow through the federal government or through a private institution. We've got, we want to be able to defer those if we're going to do the loan strategy. And then we want to start preparing to pay those loans back, those higher interest loans, with loans out of the insurance policy. So we want to fund the policy borrow the money, defer that, and allow our money to accumulate so that we can replace that 8 to 9% loan with that 5% loan. Meanwhile, creating a lot of opportunity with our money for the rest of our life. So let's go into a couple of case studies. Are there other questions right now, Corey? I see the chat.
I think I have a handle on them. One of them was, I'll let you answer this one for the group because I think it's good. It says, the part I don't understand, let me go back to it. If the index mimics the stock market indexes and the stock market has losses, how can the indexing strategy show a zero loss?
Okay, and I'm just going to go back to the slide that kind of talks about that, because unlike the stock market, or the
My
insurance,
short answer was that the insurance company guarantees us a floor of 0.
yes, because they're putting out of every 1,000 that comes in, 950 is going into this general portfolio that's made up of bonds.
Mhm.
So some of us aren't familiar with bonds yet, but I'll tell you what, you'll be very familiar with them when you enter retirement and you have a 401k, because you'll be pulling out of mutual funds at that point in time, and you'll be putting your money into bonds that are a lot safer than the volatility that you get from, like, for example, mutual funds in the S&P 500, et cetera. But that's a whole other lesson that we can kind of talk about one-on-one. Does that make sense now?
Mhm.
As far as the floor goes of 0? Very good. All right, let's get into a couple of case studies, and then we'll wrap it up. So I'm taking a sample here of a client that's going to borrow the money, and we can run calculations. We have a little calculator that we use that increase, the cost of college is increasing. I say 5%. I mean, what are you saying, Crystal and Corey, right now? What is it? It's probably a lot higher than 5% as far as the inflated cost of college going up every year.
Yeah, 7, 8.
Yeah, but if we use conservative numbers of 5%,
Yeah.
and we got to borrow that money, then eventually, here we got these 4 years where our kids going to school, we're borrowing the money, right? This is an example of 2 kids that we're trying to put through college. One's a senior in high school going to college in the fall. And then they have another child that's a sophomore going into their junior year. And so eventually they're going to have loan payments that start to double up. And they're going to need to be able to take this money out of the policy at some point in time. So, if they borrowed the money, then the loans are going to cost them $349,000. Now, we have a little bit of compound interest in our favor. These folks are going to need to put away enough to pay for those loans. So they're going to put 32 grand away. Now, this 32 grand doesn't need to be paid in one lump sum. You can do it monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually. You can even chunk money in. I've had parents that get a bonus at work or tax returns. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can talk about as far as the flexibility of how to put the money in. Now, if we're taking this 50-year-old that wants to be able to put 32 grand in, then we need a certain amount of insurance for that, which means the fees are going to be a little bit high. I'm going to say that's a negative, is that with life insurance, it's front loaded on the fees and expenses. I'm just kind of recapping from what we've talked about earlier. But then when we're done funding it, as we can see over here, we can start to reduce the insurance, which in turn starts to reduce the fees and expenses over time. So much so that if we had to spend $320K for 2 kids' college, and we let that money just continue to grow, I'm going to have you concentrate on the cash value column here, right? This is our account. So this is what our collateral is. So if we need to borrow money, I've got 100, my account's grown to 161,000. I have the ability to borrow up to this amount. That's what cash value represents. So if you want to think about it like a piece of property. This is my house and what it's worth, and this is the equity that I have in my house. So this is my collateral. This is my collateral capacity. So if I call up the insurance company and say, hey, I need $16,481, they're going to go, great, Mr. or Mrs. Johnson, you've got plenty of cash in there. How do you want that? You want that in a check, or you want us to wire it to your bank account? It's that simple. You don't have to qualify for it, in other words, because your cash is your collateral. If you want it wired to your bank, then it might take a couple of days. If you want a check and you can wait 7 to 10 days, then they will send you a check. But that's how simple it is. Now, if we look at this compounding of interest over time, that when we take this money out, we're still earning interest on all of this. We're just paying 5% on this. So we're going to take out a little more than what we put in over time and just let that compound if we want for the rest of our life. Okay? But because we're earning, let's say 6% over here, that's all we're showing is a 6% growth. That's what all this interest represents. And we're borrowing and not paying back a 5% loan. Then over time, you can see that our cash values are lower, but with that little 1% spread, it's not immediate, but eventually we would get all of our money back. That, folks, is what you call the retirement scholarship strategy. A made-up term, but that's how you get a full refund if you want to wait that long, okay? But realistically, my clients like to see it with retirement put in there. So in other words, show me retirement at age 70, okay? So this is a little bit of a different case study. And these people had younger kids. You can see that they're 41 years old. So maybe not everybody on this call has younger kids, but if you do, this might be worth looking at. They're going to put away, 400 grand over the next 10 years, because with the inflated cost of school, this is what they anticipate for their two kids' school costing is $584,000. But the cool thing about this is they can take all of that money out. And because this is compounding uninterrupted for the rest of their life, then eventually they can start doing the same thing that they did to take loans out, but now they're going to borrow their retirement. Now, the crazy thing about this is that I don't pay taxes on any of this. It's a loan. One of our largest clients was putting $750,000 away into one of these vehicles. And they're now at the point where they're taking out about $250,000 every year tax-free. They could literally qualify for food stamps because they don't file any of that on their tax returns. Isn't that crazy? Now, the funny thing is this can continue to grow and pay out for the rest of their life because we got that little 1% spread on our money. That's all we're doing. And then I got a little smaller case here, a 45-year-old putting $250K away because they had a junior in school, high school that was going to go to school, college, and this is what the college loans were going to cost. So just another example of how this works. And again, they would eventually get all their money back. But most of my parents like to see, what the potential on that little 1% spread on our money is going to look like for retirement income too. Because let's face it, in some cases, in order to put away this type of money, sometimes we got to stop funding other things, i.e. 401ks and stuff like that. So, we we do what we can to pay for our kids' school, right? So it's just a matter of putting it in a different bucket. That's all. That's still gonna go after, and help you with retirement as well. All right, we're gonna finish this up. Now, this can be used for more than just college funding. The strategy can be used for paying for college, as we've already talked about, even paying back college loans. Like, I know some people that have saved money in 529. There's only a certain portion of that you can use to pay back college loans with. A lot of restrictions. It can be used for weddings or any other major capital purchases. I've had a lot of clients that, the rate on to buy a new car was around 7 or 8 or 9%. And they're like, oh, I can get money at 5% out of my life insurance policy, and then I can pay myself back. Wouldn't it be cool that you're still making money on your money and paying yourself back interest, as opposed to having to pay a bank back interest? Kind of a cool idea. I've had people use it just to pay for their taxes. And it can be used for retirement and other investments, as I kind of showed in one of those case studies. Now, let me ask you a question. And go ahead and type it in the chat box, because I want to know, I want to hear from everybody. Would you jump out of an airplane without a parachute for $100,000? I'm going to give everybody a chance. I want to see that chat box light up. Tell me if you would. Yes or no? I see it ticking.
We're getting lots of no's. Oh, somebody said yes.
Oh, they've seen this presentation before.
Right. And a crazy.
Yeah. Now, it's kind of a funny question, but what if the plane was on the ground with inflatable slides? The moral of this story is, to make good decisions, you have to have all the information. So with that being said, let's talk. Let us run your numbers. It's 100% free. So, why not take advantage of it, right? We can meet one-on-one, discuss your situation, look at your numbers, and dig a little deeper into what I talked about tonight, to help you understand how it works.
Super.
And hey, at the end of the day, if it seems like something that's good for you, great. Otherwise, we'll still be friends.
Right. So I'm answering a question, and I don't want this other question to go unanswered. So I'll throw it to you, and you can answer it in the group, please.
Sure.
Of all the scenarios that you showed had several years leading up to college, while most people on the call have kids going to college in the next year or two. So
Yeah.
how does that look different?
So, if we look at, in this case, I mean, we have availability of cash early, right? So let's say that we have to start paying loans back here. Well, if we just moved all of this up, we have it available, right? I just was showing, like, here's a junior in high school, so, senior year, and then here's college where we're borrowing the money, right?
Yeah, and we're deferring all the payments. That's the key that I think may
Yes.
have got missed. We're paying back college loans after graduation.
Correct. So
Mhm.
yeah, and let's not get too wrapped around the numbers, but we could easily start taking this money out up here if we wanted, or down here. It's all relevant to what you have to pay back. We can adjust the numbers. And most of our illustrations, I usually can't show money coming out until year 4. So you got to kind of use your imagination. As if we already have a kid in school, we're going to have access to that cash. It's just a restriction of what the insurance companies allow us to show. Does that answer the question?
Let's see.
Now, as promised, Corey, you want me to put that YouTube channel in there?
No, I think Chris will pop in. I think we're gonna go with the secret number 3 video.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, that
And if
first
you
one.
guys, again, I think the most important thing is you guys have access to my calendar. And
And
so
that's in the chat. Yeah.
not in the chat, but however y'all want to, if you want to pop it in the chat now, you can, or I can copy and paste it now, Corey.
It's already in there. So the link to schedule with Dan is in the chat. And there will be the recording of this session will go out via constant contact, and there will also be his calendar link in there. So for those that wanted to share it with somebody who couldn't be here tonight, what have you, need to recap all of it, you are more than welcome to.
Great. That sounds like a good plan then. But that, I think that's a lot for one night. I like to try to keep it to an hour, and I think we met it right on the dot. And I'll stick around for more questions though.
Don't shut it down just yet. I'm typing an answer.
Nope, you're completely fine. I'm not going anywhere.
We do have one in here. I don't know. In this scenario, if you're continuing to pay into the life insurance while you're also paying the loan, you are paying out approximately double each year for about 6 years.
No, you're taking a loan from the insurance company to pay back the federal loan. You're not paying twice. Yeah, you're contributing here, but this is representing taking the college, paying the federal loan back.
So
Does
one
that
thing
make
we'll talk, yeah, so one thing we'll talk about in the funding meetings is the difference between compounding interest, which is what our money is compounding, versus decreasing interest. And that's what's happening to the school loans.
Yeah, if we
It's fun math.
yeah, we want to look at this slide here.
Yeah.
Right, in that instance. So we're pulling a loan out, this kind of represents 3, 4, 5 years later. We're pulling a loan out here to pay back this 8% loan or 9% loan, whatever it happens to be. And we're doing that. But yes, we're contributing for a certain period of time. And what I typically like to do is to compare apples to apples, is show you this is you contributing into the life insurance is almost as if you're just paying loans back right now, but you're putting it into the life insurance so it can compound interest, so that we can use that as collateral to borrow the insurance company's money to pay back that 8 or 9% loan. Meanwhile, allowing our money to continue to compound for the rest of our life. I try to keep it as simple as possible. And sometimes it takes a few times to go over this. And I'll tell you, I meet with clients at least once a year, and I end up going through the strategy again. I don't ever get tired of it because I do this every day. There's no dumb questions, in other words.
This is a good one. When and how does the insurance company loan get paid back?
Well, that's an interesting question. There's a lot of concepts to it. You don't ever have to pay this back. You can let it grow for the rest of your life. Let's go through that scenario really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you didn't use it for retirement, or even if you did. Okay, let's say that let's pick a normal age. I mean, I don't know. Let's say you lived until you were 89.
90, sure.
You want to go 90? Right here. Let's dissect this a little bit. Now we've borrowed all this money and it's compounding at 5%. These little yellow columns are just total columns. So if we borrowed all this money and just never paid it back and let it compound at 5% for the rest of our life, then eventually we would owe the insurance company this. Okay? That's what we owe the insurance company. We live till the ripe old age of 90 and we die. Where is the insurance company going to get paid on this? Right here in my account value. My account's grown to this 2.5, and I owe the insurance company 1.5. If I subtract this number from that number, that's how much cash I have in my account still. Plus a little bit of life insurance. If you add these two together, I'm leaving my family with 1.1 million. So I paid for school and left my family with 1.1 million. Or maybe we did what these folks did and started to borrow our retirement. And we're using it while we're alive, right? Let's say we lived until 90. My account's grown to 5.3. I've been borrowing all this money over time. I owe the insurance company 5 million. Subtract those two, I still have a lot of cash left, plus a little bit of life insurance, and I'm leaving my family with 577,000 income tax free. Does that kind of shed some light on it, the way the numbers work? And all we're looking to do is beat 5%.
Yep.
Is that helpful?
Yep, answered it.
Okay, very good. And we can get, like I said, please book an appointment. We can dig into it a little deeper too.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions that we want to make sure to hit before we sign off for tonight?
I don't think so.
And if you have an aha and come up with questions in the middle of the night, then just book an appointment with me. We can just talk about it. I promise you, I have no Jedi mind tricks to make you do what you don't want to do.
Education is key in this process, and I think that that's the biggest thing, like you said, is out of the box thinking on how people can use tools in order to achieve their goal. So
yeah. We just always want to research thing and have the right information. That's all. Put to rest any myths, if you will, because y'all can go research it on the internet, and everything you read, whether it's good or bad, it's all true.
All right. So Scott says, thank you. Very, very helpful. Another person missed the bulk of the presentation, asked if we're having another one. Yes, we'll have another one. And yes, we're recording it. So we'll be able to get the material in your hands if you missed it, or you just want to digest it a few more times. It makes more sense, and you come up with more questions the more times that you digest it. Here's a different one though, Dan, for you. Do you have folks who, in the spirit of diversification, may still do 401ks, 529s, and this insurance approach, still do it all a small bit across the board?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you never want to have your eggs all in one basket. In other words, that's one of the things that I talk about strongly is you want a lot of diversification. I mean, I still invest in real estate, stocks, even Bitcoin. But you also want something in your portfolio that gives you a tax shelter too. So there's a lot of things that we can kind of talk about, and it starts to make a lot more sense to people. I would never recommend that you put all your eggs in one basket, because if you look across the population of the United States, if you said, what are you doing for retirement? What are you going to hear? I got a 401k, 100% of the time. Okay. That's eggs in one basket. So, we talk a little bit more about diversification. I'll tell you, if we really want to get into it, that secret number 4, which is retirement restoration, we can literally show you ways of utilizing the same money that you're putting away and have put away that you could double and possibly even triple your retirement with the same amount of money. It's just a matter of understanding how everything works. And we look at all of these buckets that we put money into, some have holes in them and we don't know about it. So if you were unknowingly and unnecessarily losing money, how soon would you want to know? That's what the education part is all about that Crystal mentioned. That's all we're doing is just pointing everything out and allow, you know, as you're making decisions on how you want to do this, it's not for everybody. But for the most part, if you understand it, it makes a lot of sense. And we have lots of clients that can prove that it works. And the banks and corporations already have proved it.
We have one attendee who has their hand up. Did you have a question? I just opened him up to talk.
Okay. Stage fright.
You're muted.
Did you unmute him?
I did. Well, I can't unmute, but I asked to unmute. So
Could have been an accidental hand raise.
could have been. All right.
Okay.
It was a scratch.
Well, I want to thank everybody who attended and spent your night with us. And we look forward to having you get together and get educated.
Thank you for putting this together, ladies.
Sure. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good